All right, my friends, welcome back to the podcast with me, Jonathan Puddle. This is episode 92. I am very honored to welcome to the show this week multi-Grammy award-winning, platinum-selling artist, the one and only Lecrae. Lecrae has a new album out in 2020 called Restoration, and he's got a new book out just a couple of weeks ago called I Am Restored: How I Lost My Religion But Found My Faith. And we just had a really wonderful conversation here talking about his journey through faith, healing, restoration, hope, figuring out how to be authentically himself in a culture that didn't celebrate him for who he was. So without further ado, please welcome Lecrae to the podcast. Full disclosure, I have never listened to your music until 2 weeks ago.
That's great. No problem at all. I mean, hey.
I think when you came on the scene was right about the time I was leaving Christian music behind.
Understood.
You know, I had gone through all that. I'd been, I was into cross movement in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Wow.
and all that, Kirk Franklin. And then I was sort of going through my own faith piece and wrestling with a bunch of the bricks in the wall of my religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling like, man, so much of this Christian music I'm listening to right now is not working for me. So
Inauthentic.
that's it, right? So
Yeah.
I never really closed the loop with you until they said, hey, do you want to interview Lecrae? And I said, I would love to, but actually I need to listen to his music and read his book. So I have spent the last couple of weeks listening through the whole catalog.
Oh, wow. So you saw the journey.
Well, that's it, man. That's it. I saw the journey and it's fascinating to me, just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm thankful for the time. I'm blessed to get to connect, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, honored, sincerely.
So that journey has just been fascinating to me. There's this movement, right? Like from this kind of, let's say, like a classic evangelical certainty, you're not even God's friend, God turns his back on you kind of thing, to something different, right? Like, he gave me beauty for ashes. I blew it. I thought I was ruined. He started renewing. There's like a shift in the essence.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually felt it in my body. Listening today to your first couple of albums, it hurt in my body. But listening to Restoration, I can't sit still, man. I'm bouncing around the room. I'm full of joy and life. I can feel the spirit on it. Like,
wow,
that's fascinating to me. Walk us through, some of those big pieces in your journey. Obviously, there's books written about this whole thing, but when I say that to you, what's the first thing that happens in your heart and mind?
Oh my gosh. I'm grateful, grateful that that's the perspective you take away, because everyone's not built to be jolted and have their whole worldview shaken up and their idea of stability kind of rocked. People aren't ready for that. So for you to be able to receive that and be okay with it, welcome it, and find great gratitude in it is awesome.
Good. Cool.
Yeah.
So there's this big shift for you. You grew up obviously in an urban culture. You're a Black man. It's not like you suddenly had your eyes opened to the reality of being Black in America and this time and space.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a vocalness about that experience that changed a couple of albums ago.
Mm-hmm.
What caused that shift for you?
I think it was, you're always alluding to it in the music because you don't want to deny who you are. And I think it's who I was at the core, but then you recognize that people can't handle it. You recognize that there may be pushback or they won't understand. You just don't realize to what degree that they'll push back and what degree they don't understand. And And I don't know. I think I would leave breadcrumbs, but it wasn't until, Christina Cleveland wrote in an article, and she said that she saw me as a mascot for evangelicalism, that I was just stunned. It was like the haymaker to my face. That was like, this whole time I thought that I was kind of somewhere in the middle, maybe,
Mm.
but it was like, no, 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 you are the token Black evangelical. And so it's like, wow, let me be a little more vocal now.
Mm.
Yeah.
How does that how do you recover from that, or what was that like for you and your guts in that week, that month?
It was rough, man. I mean, you got to remember, I'm still like deconstructing these ideals that I had established. You're not just talking about somebody's view on, I don't know, how to build a house. You're talking about somebody's view on the whole world. And so my framework for seeing God in the world was just really being challenged, and I didn't know how to receive it. So it's kind of like I was very disoriented and needed to figure out, how do I move forward? What can I keep and what can I not keep? And what's wrong and what's not wrong? And it's very tough when you believe something with the core of your being, like you know it's true, but no one's ever challenged that. And now
Mm.
it's like, oh well, wait a minute, is that true? And if that's not true, what is true? That's a scary place.
Yeah, for real, for real.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm watching that in my parents' generation right now, especially like when I preach and teach, and I'm watching people in the room kind of be like, "Oh, I feel like you just kicked all the bricks in my foundation."
Yeah.
Um, I've had Christina Cleveland on this show, and I think I've never been more nervous for any show, because I'm like, this woman's going to sit here and she's going to speak truth to me,
Yeah.
and I'm and I'm hopefully going to take it well.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you realize that, for all her brilliance, where my plane landed is, for all her brilliance and her her awesomeness, she's human as well, and we're all human. We're all on a journey. She's a vessel, and that God used in that season. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's the standard and that you now have to build your whole perspective off of her, but it does mean that you just, it really, what the lesson that she the process that she began in me was to be open,
Yes.
to hearing vantage points and perspectives from so many different people.
Yes, yes, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So you're looking then around at some of your relationships, and you're kind of embedded in this quite white evangelical, sort of neo-Calvinist kind of
Mhm.
world. Did you intentionally bring change to any of those relationships, or you just started speaking up and all of a sudden relationships started changing on you?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. um you know I we I saw it with quite a few of my African American friends in the space, Pastor Eric Mason or Leonce Crump, pastors who were vocal about, you know, racial inequalities and racial injustices, who are also pretty well integrated into white evangelical neo Calvinistic spaces. And I just knew I wasn't crazy because we were all experiencing the same thing. Um, I needed, they were like a sounding board. And then, of course, my friends, as well, who were all integrated as well and who were all experiencing similar things at the same time. I was fortunate enough to have, I wasn't a part of a church network. Nobody had their claws in me, so to speak. I wasn't,
Mm.
my bills weren't being paid by an organization, so to speak. So I had more liberty than they had to just say something, and
Yeah.
it not cost me everything. It cost me, of course, but it didn't cost me as much as it would have costed them. And then when I started speaking out, it was like people started coming out of the woodwork saying, "Well, me too, me three, me four, me five," and that's when I realized, okay, I'm not crazy here.
Yeah, wow. That's so true, isn't it? Yeah, that people come out and they explain, yeah, I've been dealing with that stuff as well. How widespread do you think it is, for black artists, black preachers, black movie stars to kind of toe like a white line, so to speak?
Oh, it's it's very widespread. I mean, it's commonplace. If you're black in America or any minority in a majority dominated culture, you've learned how to assimilate, how to navigate that culture for your benefit, right? And you've learned some things that are not true. You've learned unknowingly that your culture is insignificant, that that dominant culture is the best, that their ice is colder and their water is wetter. You subconsciously learn these things, and so you're going through this process of acknowledging how you've denigrated and degraded your own self at the same time by believing these lies, and at the same time you're pushing to help other people not do the same thing. So it's extremely widespread, to answer your question. I think that's just the reality of being a minority in a majority culture, whether you are Korean in old Japan, whether you are black or Hispanic in a white dominated America, whether you were Jewish in Rome during the biblical times. This was going to be your reality.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking the other day, Octavia Spencer, I'd read, she'd recently sort of been like, I regret the role that I did in The Help, or I regret
Mm,
aspects of that. I don't feel like we were ready to do that story with any measure of justice at that time.
mm, mm.
How do you sit with like that clearly propelled her career forward, right?
Right.
Like and in some ways surely your following was built up with all these white suburban kids.
Yeah.
How do you, I don't know, like, do you feel the need to pay reparations to yourself? Like, how does that work?
Um, I mean, it's a two-part thing. So the reason why I'm not as hard on myself is because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It'd be different if I knowingly was tap dancing and being objectified, um, just so I can get a check. But I didn't know. I didn't know. I
Mm,
really thought I was loved. I really thought I was appreciated. I really thought I was seen and valued. And so there's grace there. Even as you awaken to these things, there's always a tendency to put down other black people who may be in the dark and say, "What are you doing? What's your freaking problem?" But sometimes they don't know, and so you do your best to educate them and give them the materials. Um, I look at it like once I did know, you are in a conundrum and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I do here? And for me, my methodology was to dig a tunnel. It's kind of like the Count of Monte Cristo. You just dig a tunnel and you find your way out of that situation. But you still act like a prisoner on a day-to-day basis. You still go smile and keep pushing because you're digging your tunnel and your escape route is being created. And for me, that tunnel that I was digging was financial stability, because I live in a society and a culture where um, being objectified and being what white evangelicals wanted me to be was financially beneficial. Being who I authentically am was a financial suicide mission. So when I was awakened to everything, it turned into a situation where it's like, okay, let's get some financial stability going here, and then we're gonna blow the roof off this thing.
yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. When I read you retelling that piece about like that you thought you were loved, you thought that you
Mm,
were seen, my heart broke, man.
mm,
And for what it's worth, I'm so sorry that you were treated that way, and and that love was masqueraded, as
mm,
something else.
mm.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate that. It's a process.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That must have been. I mean, how is that for you relationally? how do you pick yourself up and dust yourself off, and people that you've looked up to, and where your faith and your theology is married up all around this stuff with your self-worth.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, relationally, I think you realize and you recognize that the people who you were closest with and who need you are going to walk with you on that journey. The people who saw you as disposable or expendable, they tend to not stay there, and you just realize, okay, we're not really friends. Then I mean, doesn't make them evil people, doesn't make them any less wise. It just brings to light the reality of that relational dynamic, and so you stop having that expectation. You know what I mean? You stop expecting it to be more than it is. It's almost like, oh, she's just not that into you. You know what I mean? It's kind of that realization. And then you lean into the relationships who do need you. That's one of the things I began to realize. I began to realize that white evangelicalism loved the Lecrae that they wanted, but they didn't love Lecrae for who he was. And white evangelicalism didn't need Lecrae. There are pockets and cultures and people who need my voice. And that's where I had to lean into, instead of trying to plead and beg for the spaces who didn't really need my voice. They're like, oh, well, if we don't have him, there's so many other voices. I mean, we really need said, pastor's voice or said artist's voice. We don't need Lecrae. He's a great virtue signal of our desire for diversity, but we don't really need him.
We need baptized music that we can permit our young people to listen to.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't have hype tunes, they won't come to our events anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
As some of those relationships shifted then, and you're looking at these people, okay, let me back up. I've spent years of my career working in a particular Christian ministry who I love, great respect for those people. But Jonathan Puddle has a lot more going on than just the values of that one ministry. And I began to realize that the longer I spend there, I kind of marinate in that culture. I kind of pickle in those values. And I start playing the game according to what those guys are looking for, those talent scouts, those pastors. And when I left my employment there, it took some time to kind of settle down into me and realize I've been caring about all kinds of things I don't care about, because those were the rules of the system. Did that happen for you as you're kind of sliding away from some of those friends?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. You just find yourself like almost feeling bad about it, because you're like, does this mean I'm spiritually declining because I'm not as interested in some of these things as I once was? And yeah, I experienced that greatly. For me, I've always liked, studying the cultural history around the Bible, current times, a culture. I love culture. And but yet that was not something that I was told was valuable or necessary or needed. I just needed to learn how to parse Greek. And I didn't really want to learn how to parse Greek verbs. Like it's not something that, you know what I mean? I it was like evangelism explosion. And I was like, I just feel like having genuine relationships with people has been far more beneficial to like helping them navigate faith in God than like asking them, have they ever told a lie before, and then walking them through just so many things like that, where I would wonder like, this is not stuff that I really cared about in the first place. But this is stuff that I was told that I have to care about in order to be a faithful Christian.
Yeah. what did it look like practically on some of those days where you wake up and you're like, okay, I no longer have to care what this guy thinks. Today I get to be Lecrae, and maybe I get to take a deeper breath than I did yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Sliding into being yourself. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think you know, for me it's looked like um on a practical level, I think it's having conversations with people and being the most authentic version of myself, not a manicured version that like fits this stereotype that they believe I look like. And then seeing their eyes jump out of their head when I say something that they didn't expect me to say, or did he swear, or what just happened? You know what I mean? And but what that does is that allows them to see like my humanity, our commonality, and that I'm not here because of religious jargon or like hierarchies or some kind of spiritual caste system. I'm here because of grace, and I'm walking with anybody and whoever's around, who wants to walk with me in this process. Yeah.
Yes, so good. I'm seeing like you're obviously, I think a lot of people are on a similar trajectory. Like there's just millions of people wrestling with the faith of their parents, with the faith of the nation, and how they intersect with that, what that means for them as humans, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe once upon a time, and maybe some listeners are listening and they're like, okay, Jonathan's talking about faith, and then Lecrae's talking about race. Like these are integrated matters, right? Like
Yeah.
this is one and the same.
Yeah.
When famous people go through these journeys, it's more visible for the rest of us to see. And I think sometimes we can find hope in that because
Mm.
we see, okay, there's other people going through this journey. I see like Nicole Nordeman is kind of back in music, and she's got a new album, and it's like coming off the back of divorce and personal crisis and all this kind of stuff. And I see again a lot of that in your music, right? There's like this honesty about the drugs and about the pain and about all the stuff. Does denial of pain, like what does that do to us?
Oh man, I would say denial of pain is honestly where you find um, more pain. Like suppression. Confession leads to freedom. Suppression leads to more suffering, right? So it's just leading to more suffering by you denying the pain that you're experiencing and denying the pain that you've gone through. What you learn is not healthy coping mechanisms. What you learn is how to escape, and the problem is that eventually it's going to catch up to you. It's going to catch you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You wrote, I don't know how much of this I typed out word for word, but you wrote to the effect, my failure to comprehensively address my relationship with my father created even more chaos in my life. And then kind of conservative evangelical stages are packed with these kinds of testimonies with just enough detail to point to Jesus, but it's sort of like trauma porn, just a little flash of flesh. You leave them wanting more. You say, oh, God restored my relationship, but your trauma gets exploited like for the sake of the gospel, and no one's actually interested in you being healed.
Yeah, it's just more objectification. You know what I mean? That's really what it comes down to. It's like, show me how this points to what we really care about. Because we don't really care about this. We just care about the message. And so it's almost like going to a movie. And oftentimes Christian movies are not well written. They're not well executed because the goal is the message and not the art. So they create these films because they know they'll objectify art to get the message. So just show me what we really care about. Like, get to that. Show me how this points to this. And I think you miss out on the power and on the miraculousness of creation. It's almost like you don't go outside on a sunny day and say, this is all cool and everything, God, but show me how this points to the gospel, right? You don't do that. You go out there and you enjoy it and you appreciate it and you bathe in the sun and you swim in the ocean. And there may be moments where you think, man, I'm so grateful that God is loving and generous. And yes, this is evidence that he's real. And so it should push me toward, seeking him more. But ultimately, you go there to appreciate what's there. And when we're talking about trauma and we're talking about pain, like we should be there to allow people to connect and say, I see you. What you're dealing with is not so shameful that it can't be addressed. What you're wrestling through is something that we can sit in for a second and not try to scathe over and slather on a message. But we can be here for a minute, you know what I mean? And it's okay, because that's how we're going to heal. We're going to have to sit in that for a little while, in order to find healing. And I think that's what we don't get enough of. It's like we know what's happening out here, but we don't want to talk about it, right? We know little Johnny is looking at porn, but we're just going to say, don't look at porn, trust Jesus. We're not going to dive into the depths of that, right? We're not going to wrestle with any of those particular things. Like we're scratching the surface on areas of race and sexuality. So, it's not what the evangelical church wants to do.
Yeah, for real, man.
Yeah.
I know you've read The Body Keeps the Score, and I've read a bunch of that and a lot of other stuff in that realm. And it came to me that I think sin really is pain avoidance.
Mm.
And so you take a trauma-informed perspective on sin and you say, okay, so little Johnny's looking at porn. Well, what is he avoiding?
That's good.
What is he feeling that he desperately doesn't want to feel? I know in my life, I was addicted to porn by the age of 13, and I had to get over the addiction factor, right? Like the chemical dependency. And once that was broken, everything was about healing. Everything was about like, Jonathan, what are you trying to not feel? And thus everything came back to wounds from my childhood and wounds in my life. And, my parents' divorce and my father coming out and just like tons and tons of disappointment, year after year of your life. But I think you're right. I don't think we're ready to sit down with Johnny and say, okay, so maybe you've been wronged. Maybe before, you started looking at boobies, someone did something wrong to you, and it's not your fault. And we need to help you sit with your pain. But I can't have that conversation with you because I've got years of pain I've never learned to sit with, and I don't want to go down that journey.
Yep. Nailed it. It's funny because if anything, faith should make us more comfortable in the nuance. It should make us more comfortable in the gray areas. But what it does is it creates this like false sense of security in like, categories and making things more black and white. The world is already struggling with nuance, right? Don't even include faith. The world is struggling with nuance. Like we still have a two-party system in America that everyone believes is like, it's right or wrong. Like there's no room for like, well, perhaps there's wrong on both sides. Perhaps. So
that sounds like you don't believe in Jesus and you hate babies.
Exactly.
And Israel.
So that's the problem is like, if you really look at Jesus, he lived in the nuance. Like that's where he was comfortable, which is what got him killed, right? And so if anything, it should make us more comfortable in the nuance and more comfortable in these gray areas, but it doesn't. We just create new categories, new religious laws to deal with things. And so I can't talk with Johnny about his porn because my category says it's wrong, stop it, done. What do we talk? Are we having a conversation about this? We know what it says. This is not a conversation. So there's no room for nuance because we believe that we've been given. That's what we love. Just tell me what to do. Okay, I don't want to think about it. Just tell me what to do, and then I'm good.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So the subtitle of your book is How I Lost My Religion but Found My Faith. Could you break down those two a little bit for us? For some people, religion simply means I believe in God. But I think a lot of us who've grown up in the church, religion is this very specific thing, kind of like the rules that you were just touching on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, religion is a practice, right? Religion is the idea that you follow these practices. And, in a perfect world, the practices are a demonstration of your relationship, right? In a perfect world. But in our society, what religion fleshes itself out as is us following laws and practices in order to gain acceptance, whether that's acceptance by a church, whether that's acceptance by people, by God, whatever it is. You're not doing this because you genuinely are passionate about it and have a desire to cultivate relationship with people and with God. You're doing it because you want to be accepted instead of understanding you are accepted and then living out of that reality. So faith is moving forward, in this kind of weird space of like, so I'm already loved, I'm already accepted, so I just do this stuff and I may fall and I just get back up and I keep going and it's all good. Faith is like, so I can come back home, and be embraced. So I can get stuff wrong and it's still, we're cool. So religion is the idea of me having to get it all right in order to be accepted. Faith is me recognizing, man, there's no way I'm gonna get this right, but I'm gonna trust in this relationship that you say that we have now, and I'm gonna just keep moving forward. I always use this example of like, me coming home with a bouquet of flowers for my wife and saying, here, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I guess here's your flowers. This is what you do to have sex with your wife. So here, I'm sleeping on the couch, right? But
Totally.
if I'm thinking about her all day long and I'm inspired and I'm like, I'm gonna get her some flowers, right? And I come home with flowers. It's an act of faith because I don't know what's going to happen, but I just know that I want to cultivate this relationship. She may not even like flowers, but I took the risk. You know what I mean? It's like I stepped out on that because I love you and I want to cultivate this relationship. And that's a faith journey. That's a faith walk.
And that's an organic outflow of your heart rather than like, I should do this, I shouldn't do that.
Right.
It's so real, man. Like, I'm a kids pastor, among other things. And even in the curriculum and the stuff we're trying to teach our kids, and every kids church curriculum I find almost is like, don't do this. Here's the 10 commandments. Memorize this. Cain killed Abel because Cain was the bad one. Don't be like the bad one. And I'm like, okay, I got to teach these kids about the Holy Spirit. And I want to teach these kids that Christ comes and lives in you.
Yeah.
And it's not even your own strength.
Yeah.
But it's so ingrained,
And it's funny because I have 3 kids and I have it's just our wiring. We are natural born legalists. That's just what we are wired to be. And I tell them again and again and again and again, there's nothing you can do to make me love you more or love you less. Nothing. Their brain, no matter how many times I say it, they come back. They come back with this like, well, what if I do this? I'm like, no. But what if? I'm like, no. I'm like, that's how God is. There's no like that's how he loves us. And so I'm trying to explain to you that it's like grace and love that fuels this thing, and not your righteous actions. But I think in their small little brains, they just, that's what they're used to. They're used to, like, well, you said don't do this and do this. And so we're training them in that mindset of rights and wrongs. And I do agree that there is a season for them just like learning, like, hey,
Sure.
here's the barriers. But then it's a new season of like, well, there's some nuance here, and only God's gonna be able to walk you through that. You got to trust in the Spirit to navigate through this.
That's so true. We'll take a quick break to thank my patrons. Thank you to everybody who supports me on patreon.com. Your encouragement and support means so very much to me. Thank you as well to everybody who ordered my new book, You Are Enough, Learning to Love Yourself the Way God Loves You. It's been really cool seeing those books arrive. I love the photos that you guys have been sending out. I really love the posts when people get stuck on certain days and just can't go past for a little bit. So please keep sending those photos. Tag me on social media at Jonathan Puddle. I have really enjoyed hearing the stories of your journey with this book. So thank you to everyone who bought that. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. If you would like to become a patron of this show for $3 a month, you can join up at patreon.com/Jonathan Puddle. Thanks so much. I'll talk with people about moving away from violent parenting or from real moralistic parenting. And the first response from people is always like, "Oh, so you're going to go and let your kid run across the road?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Okay, sweet, thank you. Like, it's so great that we went there." Like, a child can't be held responsible for what a child doesn't understand. So I'm gonna put supports around them.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't have the developmental capacity, the knowledge, the so on to understand the danger factors in their life. But when my 16-year-old is walking down the street, I'm not going to be like, "Are you watching out for the cars in the road?" Like,
right.
That's ridiculous.
Right.
And in fact, it's going to be toxic to him. And he's going to say, "Get out of here, Dad. Like, you are so blind to my lived reality."
Man, boy, that's weighty. You speaking, you preaching to me now.
I'd love to know what brings you joy, man. Like, what when you're sitting in your integrity and being authentically you, when you go outside and look at the sun, and you don't say, "Well, Jesus, where's the cross out here in the sun?" When you're not looking for religious symbolism anywhere, everywhere, like we just discussed. What is it that, like, where you just feel the joy?
Honestly, it's when I have margin, like, and that's why I fight for weekly is just space. I just tend to pile on tasks and assignments and burdens, and then life will throw you curveballs that create new burdens. So it's like, oh, I wasn't anticipating cancer, Mom. Okay, well, there's a new burden now that I wasn't anticipating. And what I realized is that as much as I love to plow through life and just reap a harvest, and I find joy when I can just sit back and not have to think about anything, not have to over process. And so, meditation has been good for me, taking a day to just meditate, walking, just taking a walk and you know what? I don't have to worry about anything. There's not a call I have to think about. There's not a kid that I have to bathe or it's just, I can just walk. And I think that's, it's that subtlety that brings me joy. I'm very controlling. And so I think a large part of my depression and anxiety came from not having control and feeling as if everything was spinning out of control and I could not. I was like, and I think I have joy when I can say, guess what? There's nothing to control. God's got it. Just chill,
I can identify with that.
Yeah.
Even when you're in a busy social media space and you're it's like just to leave my phone and
Mm-hmm.
to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, oof.
Yep. Yep.
I went on a long kind of meditative journey last year. I felt like God said to me early in 2019, Jonathan, it's time you became responsible for the love in your life. Like you need to learn to love yourself. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And and that was when I was getting into like Body Keeps the Score and learning about
Mm.
trauma. And I had faced panic attacks and anxiety and depression for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And starting to see that actually under like my depression was anger that
Mm.
that I'd never been permitted to feel.
Yeah.
And sitting with that and understanding actually underneath my anger was all just grief and sadness because life hadn't gone the way my 5-year old brain thought it would go.
Mm-hmm.
And through meditation coming to kind of meet those different parts of myself and extend grace to each one.
Yeah.
And then I find myself like looking at myself in grace and love, and I see God saying like, yeah, now you can love your neighbor because now you've actually learned to be present to yourself and love yourself. And I'm like, man, no one told me this in like masculine formation school.
That's a class that gets skipped over.
How can we do better for our kids and for the next generation?
Man, you know, a large part of it is realizing and recognizing that we are just at best, we are giraffes on ice skates. You know what I mean? We are just clumsy. And I think when I'm overly confident, I fall more.
Hmm.
When I am aware of my clumsiness, the authentic moments of leadership and transparency and those things happen more. Um, and so what I've learned is to embrace that reality, because oftentimes, we're afraid of being seen as weak, or we're afraid of being seen as, clumsy, instead of just saying, no, I am. You know what I mean? Like, I am. I'll never forget this. Twitter was just really starting to be a like a thing. It was a thing, but I was getting into it more. And I was having a rough day. I don't even remember what I did. I blew it somehow. I don't remember what I did. I may have, like, you know, um, I don't even remember what I did, but I knew I blew it. I knew I didn't live up to my expectations. And and I remember just feeling like, freak, man, I'm such a loser. And I tweeted like, this is an emo tweet. I was like, I'm not a Christian because I got it all together. I'm a Christian because I'm weak and I need a savior. I remember tweeting that just on some, like, I don't care. This is just where I'm at right now, and not thinking much about it. Most retweets I've ever had in my over 100 and it's like 70,000 retweets. And I was like, what just happened? And I think it was like a light bulb went off that said, the acknowledgement of your frailty is liberating, because everyone's carrying on this facade that they have it all together. And I don't think we'll do well for our children by pretending that we have it all together. I think they need some help understanding that we are more stable, but our stability comes from trusting in God and his wisdom, and not because, I just have it all together. So I apologize to my kids often. Um, you know, I admit I don't know, and I say, "Hey, let's pray," because Daddy doesn't know, and so they can see a sense of trust. And that's been a saving grace in a lot of circumstances. And I mean, we'll see how it pans out. I mean, they're not adults yet, so we'll see how much counseling they end up having to get as they get older. But so far, It's what I'm learning.
That's so good, man. I feel like forget paying for your daughter's wedding. Just put counseling money aside for all your kids.
Yeah.
That's it. What about the music? Are you the kind of guy? I don't know much about your process. Are you kind of constantly churning on the music? Are you in big like seasons where you're really focused? Are you in the studio every day? What's kind of like your vibe?
Yeah. The music, it it comes, as I think I've afforded the opportunity in my life now to follow inspiration. Before I had to be very disciplined,
Mm.
and you just work until inspiration comes. Now I'm in a season of life where, um, by the grace of God, I don't have to do music.
Yeah,
I get to do music,
sure.
and so I'll follow the inspiration and I'll follow the lead. I don't want to be controlled by it to where it feels like a job. Um, I have other things in my life that are a job. So
Three
um,
babies.
yeah, so that's one area where I'm like, okay, it's been a job for so long, I didn't enjoy it. Um, but now I enjoy it, and I enjoy letting inspiration lead me.
Mm.
Yeah.
What's fresh then for you right now? What's kind of you wake up in the morning and go to bed at night? What's Lecrae chewing over in his spirit,
Mm.
musically, mentally, whatever?
Yeah, it's seasonal. Right now, trying to be a good leader for my kids, because they're able to be a lot more cognizant and processing the world around them more. So just trying to help shape their worldview a lot more is like one of the things that I'm wrestling with on a regular basis. Um, and then just trying to figure out my why more, asking myself why, what's my why? Um, and not to sound gloomy, but just being honest, I'm just in a season of life too where I'm like, I believe that there's a life after this one, and I anticipate it. Like Paul was saying, man, I'm here for y'all, but I really want to go home.
Yeah.
And I feel that so much more now. It's like I'm only here for y'all, man. I have seen a lot, done a lot. I'm just trying to raise these kids and pour my life out because, man, like as you family members start dying, people get sick, divorces happen, and you're like, okay, all right, depression, panic attacks. You're like, all right, okay, I'm here for y'all because this place, you know,
It's hard.
it's rough. Yeah,
It hurts.
man. Yeah, man.
And then you turn up at church and tell someone you're having a hard time, and they say, "Oh, just have more faith, brother."
I do. I have faith that heaven awaits. How about that?
Amen.
Yeah,
Lecrae, would you pray for us?
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, God, I'm reminded of Psalm 25 and David just when the psalmist just being expressive about a desire for restoration and renewed perspective, and um, you not counting his failures against them. And I pray that for anybody and everybody who's listening, for restoration, for renewed perspective, for you not counting their failures against them. God, just acknowledgement that it is hard, that life is difficult, and that joy is something that cannot be taken away, but happiness is by happenstance. And so, God, I do pray for happy moments for people, but I pray for unshakable joy, that you give them a joy that would help them push through the difficult times, give them strength and the ability to persevere. We love you. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lecrae. Make sure that you go and check out his book, I Am Restored: How I Lost My Religion But Found My Faith. You'll find that linked in the show notes. I don't think I finished it, but I read almost all of it now, and it's really enjoying it. Really vulnerable, authentic journey about his life. And we're touching, like we touched on in this interview, a ton of different subjects all woven in together. It was a real blessing to me. I was really, really touched by his story, so I recommend that to you. Make sure you're listening to Restoration as well. If you don't know Lecrae very well, he's doing a ton of stuff outside of the music as well. He's working in partnership with Prison Fellowship and a number of other organizations to really help disenfranchised folks in the United States. He's a partner with a venture capital group looking to fund projects that might not otherwise be funded. He's doing a bunch of work with homeless and incarcerated people in and around the Atlanta metro area. So go follow him on all the social media. It's just @Lecrae, and I will link to a bunch of other resources here in the show notes so that you can get a fuller picture of this remarkable, humble man who I really enjoyed speaking to. Have a great day, friends. See you next week.